All right. Well, I am here with Daniel from Sam Houston State. He is the Associate Director of the Bearcat One Card. My name's Luke. And Daniel, where are you calling in from today?
So we are located in Huntsville, Texas. So a little bit, a few miles north of Houston. So kind of in between Houston and Dallas. Probably the best way to describe that.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I've never been to Texas, but eventually I wanna get down there. It sounds like pretty awesome state.
Yes, it's the goat state, as we like to call it
The
here.
goat state. Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Well, if you wouldn't mind, just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in the Bearcat One office.
Yeah. So I've been working at Sam Houston State since about 2010. I came over here. Actually, I worked in rec sports for a while, so I was doing that and started in like the rec world and did that for a few years. I was a graduate assistant, eventually became a professional staff member, and then kind of just shifted through a few different areas at the university. So went from rec sports and then eventually worked my way over overseeing all the student organizations on campus after doing intramurals and clubs prior to that. And so oversaw our student organizations for a few years. And then a position opened up in the Bearcat One Card office for an associate director role. Had good relationships with some of those folks, and I applied and then basically got into that position about 2018 or so. And so I've been in the office for a few years, but obviously, as many of us know, technology and everything's changed pretty drastically in the last couple of years. So, but been working with Bearcat One Card in particular since that time. And then we had a major kind of campus reorganization about a year and a half ago. And that kind of combined the Bearcat One Card office with our cashier's office, which was formerly the bursar's office. And so I actually am associate director for Bearcat One Card and cashiers here at San Francisco.
Okay.
So
Very good. Yeah, you mentioned rec sports. Did you ever ref any of the games?
oh yeah, so that's where I started. Like student worker, 18 years old. I went to Florida State for my undergrad, and did intramural soccer, and then eventually intramural softball, and then became a supervisor for all these different sports, and then
Okay.
oversaw and created all the different leagues and tournaments. So I'm very well versed in very specific rules, and I actually still teach classes where, like, I teach an officiating class sometimes on campus, going over very specific rules because I'm a sport management major. It's kind of my specialty on the side there. So don't
That
do much of that in my main role though. So
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I actually played a lot of intramural basketball, and man, we gave those refs too much of a hard time. So I apologize to all the refs out there
we
listening to this. But
you definitely look at officiating very differently once you do it for a long period of time. I definitely have much more respect, and you're very calm in demeanor towards officials when you
yeah,
do it. So
yeah, it's a hard job. It's a very difficult job, no doubt.
I'd like to say every decision you piss off half the people around. So
It's the truth. It's the truth. All right. Well, I want to shift gears to your role now. And if you could just generally talk about some of the biggest problems that you've encountered in your role and kind of what's been frustrating about those experiences, that'd be great to hear that from you.
Yeah, I think just generally speaking, the Bearcat One Card in particular, so our office and where I kind of started the last couple of years, there is a lot of benefits where our card is used for a variety of different services on campus, and it's very beneficial to students in that regard. Examples. If you go to get into your residence hall, right? You're using your Bearcat One Card to get into your residence hall. You go to swipe for a meal plan. You're using our card to do that. If you're going to an athletic event, if you're going to all these different events, there's lots of different avenues and paths that, like, you use your card to do these types of services. But when you're so ingrained in all these different areas, right, there's just logistical problems that can arise from being so spread out and having lots of different services that your card can help provide. When everything's running right, nothing's changing, no one wants to upgrade or do anything differently, it's pretty smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Right? Just as just in different worlds, people are always needing to upgrade servers, or we want to change this equipment, or we want to go to this new software, and like all the different areas, And when they make any of those individual type changes, that just drastically possibly impacts our service, and we have to be involved in either some of those decision-making processes, the meetings to make sure that things are happening to take place that won't cause any other issues or further damage and cost us more money down the road. And so we're kind of very much like a central component to overall campus services. And that's just me in my role from the card side. You throw in the fact that now I'm also associate director from the cashier side, and now I have the whole other aspect of bringing in money, and so I oversee and help and manage like 5 or 6 different systems. And when I'm overseeing all these different systems, whether that be Seaboard or TouchNet and CloudCard, and I can go down the list of all those different things. There's just, and we deal with Banner a lot, and there's just all these different, and Bank Mobile is a partner that I'll talk about a little bit later. We have to make sure all those things work in unison and tandem, and we're being as efficient as we can in that regard. And there's just a lot to make all of campus run on the back end from an infrastructure standpoint, and we're kind of involved in all of it. That makes sense. So.
That's super helpful. I really like how you describe that. It's like the one card touches so many different systems, and you really are at the center of the whole thing. Yeah. But a lot of times if something goes wrong, it's not like you have the power to fix it right off the bat. So you're probably having to manage a lot of different personalities and different systems together, and doing a lot of organizing. So I can see how that'd be difficult to get it all working in unison.
Yeah, and so I have to do a lot of that on the back end, right, to try to make sure this is working. And then also even just our other staff, imagine if you're just a student that doesn't know much about all this, and you go to, say, the rec center, and you want to go into the rec, and they're like, hey, you're not allowed in today. Well, why am I not allowed in? Well, it says you're not a student. Well, is that because the rec system Fusion doesn't recognize you as a student? Is that the card is not working correctly? Is there something wrong where, like, were you actually dropped from your classes? Like, there could be all these different ways, but the default that a lot of people come to is my card did not let me in, so I'm going to go to the card office to solve my problem. And so become a problem solver for every and anything that could possibly go wrong related to the card, whether it's really a card issue or not. And we pride ourselves on our customer service that we provide to try to accomplish that for our students. So
yeah, that's super interesting. It's like you're the first line of defense, because it's like, the card isn't working, but it could be something with Banner that's not right.
Right. It could be anything. I mean, it could be there, and maybe it is the card. It very well could be, but we're not sure until we do some digging in there. So
cool. That's super helpful. Yeah, that explains a lot. So with that problem in mind, how do you, I don't know if it's even a problem you can solve, but how do you manage that?
It's what I struggle with every day, Luke. It's just what is the highest priority today, right? So, I have a list of things that are going on. What needs to be solved today versus what is a project we need to work on as a team. Luckily, I have, a team of people that I work with, and I'm able to delegate different individuals to different tasks. And we have, one benefit of having 2 teams come together, Bearcat One Card and cashiers, is we had multiple staffs that are now able to, say the card office was a little slower at this time, but the cashier's office was a little busier. I can kind of shift resources back and forth between those 2 areas. One problem being, though, we're normally busy about the same time, so that doesn't help as much. But there are times where that does actually help to have 2 different, groups of staff that I can have work on different problems independently of each other. But really, it's just a lot of being very specific, delegating out, tasks, trying to figure out what's reasonable, sitting down and having, I do individual meetings with my direct reports, but I also have like an operations meeting once a month where we tie all that together with how do we make this work. And then keeping and building strong relationships on campus. I think, one of the reasons I even got this position is I had good working relationships with folks in other departments. And as we talked about, if you don't have those relationships, that could make your life very challenging in this role. So trying to maintain strong working relationships with people on campus is probably also extremely important for anyone dealing with similar challenges like this.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm hearing a lot of teamwork. I'm hearing a lot of leadership. Setting up meetings and being intentional with the people that you're overseeing and managing. So yeah, I mean, that's really interesting to think about the card office from and I guess book services for you from a leadership perspective.
Yeah, and I think also like one thing I learned is you have to be very clear in your goals and your intentions, and not just, hey, what do we want to do this week or this month? Like, hey, let's try to accomplish this goal by this specific date. And if we can't do that, well, let's come back to the table and talk about why. But if you don't do that, sometimes you could just always get in the weeds of, well, we'll get to that project eventually. And
yeah.
I think with how many projects we have, there's times that I could have 20 or 30 projects on the board. And if you have that mentality, when are you ever actually moving forward? So you have to kind of set up some very specific dates and parameters to accomplish these goals.
So are you managing all this on a whiteboard or using some sort of software? Like how do you get these goals out in front of you?
Right. And I think it's a combination. I've definitely over the years have tried to push as much as possible on my computer into platforms that we can work through as a team. So we actually use Microsoft Teams a lot. And that's something that we kind of implemented probably a few months prior to COVID actually coming through. And it was extremely helpful, particularly during that time, to be working from home and independently from one another, having a platform like that to kind of manage stuff. And so we use that quite a bit to share information. But I also do have in my office to my right over here, like a giant whiteboard with like just some key, I'm looking at it right now, some key projects that we are working on and like when do we want to accomplish them. And we actually put a even larger scale whiteboard that kind of takes up like half of a whole wall towards the front of our office for what we use for like half of it's for day-to-day, like what we want our staff at the front to accomplish that day. And then we also have some like motivational section of the board. And then we actually have like a fun part with like, come through and play this game on your way through the office today to try to make it more fun for the group as well. So, but yeah, that board keeps our goals and stuff kind of prioritized. Like, so day-to-day goals are out there and kind of the big picture goals are kind of like in my office and my director's office. That's kind of right next to me over here. So,
yeah. Yeah. I'm just imagining you having a game of dodgeball in the office and you reffing that.
Oh, I would love I don't know if other people here would be as that, but I would love that.
No, that's really cool. I love how proactive your approach is, right? You're not reacting to the things that are happening around you. You're saying, no, we have goals, we want to accomplish them. So let's get these out on paper or in Microsoft Teams, and let's figure out how to accomplish these as a team. And let's have fun along the way. Exactly. That's amazing. All right, so and I guess my last question kind of in this section of our time today is, what results or benefits have you seen from solving that, I guess, management tension through some of these goals and these objectives in Microsoft Teams? Like what benefits have you seen from that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like in particular, we do have student staff that works in our office. And I don't know if it's more of a generational thing or if it's just the way of the world, but it seems like our students, staff in particular, interact and work with the Teams platform much better than the old way that we used to communicate with them. And that was through email, right? Like it used to be a lot of email, and for whatever reason, they were not reading them, not responding to them, losing those emails, whatever. And this kind of keeps work in its own unique space,
Right.
where if you're not at work, I don't necessarily expect them to look at that on their time off. They're student workers, but when you're here, have this up and ready to go, and we can manage and utilize this software to effectively communicate with one another. And we can have meetings after hours through these platforms. Our university does also have Zoom, so we use sometimes Zoom for actual conference meetings, but we could do things like that on Teams as well. But it kind of keeps things a little bit more streamlined from we're providing information or reference documents or trainings, and we can upload stuff through specific channels within that system that seem to work better than here's a binder that we used to hand you. Keep this with you at all times, or don't forget. And if you want to update things, right, everyone's got to go get the binder out and change all the. So it kind of just makes information kind of more seamless, and when you change it. But you do have to be intentional in communicating out those changes to your staff, particularly when you have, student workers that aren't working here full time, because they have lives, right? They have classes, they have other things that are going on. So, but that platform has been very, beneficial in kind of building up some of that teamwork, and for cross-campus collaboration with other groups. Say we're working on, a year and a half ago, the university created this College of Osteopathic Medicine, and we would do some team meetings, but if documents or things were being shared that we all need to be aware of, we had a channel dedicated to that program so that we could reference back to those materials along the way, ask questions, etc. So it was kind of keeping things more organized in a more specific manner, instead of getting lost in the shuffle with all the projects that lots of offices have. So
yeah. Well, kudos to you guys for getting rid of the binder. I think that's a great step forward. So very cool. All right. So I want to shift gears to this and get more specific and talk about your experience with CloudCard. So before CloudCard, online photo submission, what was the specific problem or struggle that you were that was frustrating you and that you were dealing with?
I mean, obviously, without online photo submission, we were really struggling with one, just traffic flow in general, right? Numbers, particularly in peak periods, beginning of the fall semester, the week leading up to fall, the week back from spring. We would have a line out the door, down the hall, down the stairs. At the time, we were upstairs in a different suite, and so managing that traffic can be challenging, particularly in busy peak periods. So finding ways to get people to submit those photos was, and through an easy and efficient method was obviously something we were looking forward to. We had a homegrown system, and it was okay, but there was lots of varying technical issues that would arise, and no one really had a clear answer how to solve it. People would complain about this isn't very easy to use, and we'd be denying photos, and they would get upset with us because they wouldn't understand why, and it was not as seamless as it probably needed to be. And so we were looking for ways to improve that experience and reduce obviously traffic during peak periods. And this is prior to COVID, just generally speaking, before we even had to worry about distancing rules and things like that. We were still looking at trying to just reduce the traffic pattern in our office. And then when you combine that with, my office combined with the cashier's office, just imagine the traffic flow that could go through when all payments are due this day. Oh, and by the way, everyone needs a Bearcat One card at the same time. The amount of students that could be waiting in line for our services with only 4 or 5 stations available to assist those folks. And so we combined 2 large offices into one. We really needed a better way to provide a better customer service experience to the students. So
yeah, I hear that a lot. Like it's all about providing an awesome student experience, which I love that about the card office in general in higher ed. Like they just really want the students to have a great experience once they get on campus. And it sounds like for you guys, you tried to solve, you took the resources that you had in-house and tried to solve the problem with your own in-house solution. and then we're ready to upgrade to something a little more seamless. So,
Yeah, exactly.
So what is it about specifically CloudCard online photo submission that that helped you solve those problems? You know, why did you choose to upgrade from your in-house solution to CloudCard?
So, I mean, the reason that we ultimately tried to do it is because we went through, right, and we kind of saw some different demos of different companies that were out there to see what was out there. But at the end of the day, we wanted to do something that was intuitive and easy for the student, but also was as seamless as a transition as possible for our back end, I guess, staff and personnel at the university. And so again, when you go to make these changes, we're very involved in lots of different areas. You know, I don't work in IT, and there's a lot of IT support and help that goes into making these things work. And so back to having good relationships, like knowing our IT folks on campus that would need to be involved, I invited them into the demo to watch all them, because at the end of the day, they're going to help make this happen. If they see something on the front end that's, you know, scary to them, or that's not going to work, why would we waste our time pursuing a vendor that's not even really going to probably make this work? So I think that you know, we ultimately saw, you know, this platform as a way that it was easy for the student. It was easy. I shouldn't say easy integration, but it was easier than a lot of other areas to tie together and do things like single sign-on and stuff that with our university. And the transition was much more seamless than possibly working with, you know, other vendors or trying to create another more customizable solution that would have taken even more IT resources to solve. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking me through your process. That's really cool to hear that. And I guess my last question is, what benefits have you seen after implementing CloudCard? What have you been able to achieve through the implementation?
Yeah. So like right now, as of today, I checked the numbers, you know, this morning, but, you know, we've approved about 4,909 photos so far through CloudCard, which is obviously, those are people that then do not need to come to our office to get a card. And the reason I say that is, say you submit your photo through this platform, unlike a lot of other universities, we actually have a banking partner that we work with, Bank Mobile, that distributes and sends the cards out to students. So like, these people aren't even needing to step into our office to pick up their ID card at any point. They're getting mailed after we approve the photo, and it goes through our Seaboard system, gets sent to Bank Mobile. The card is just getting sent to them in the mail. And so we're never needing to see these individuals in our office, which obviously just reduces that traffic that I talked about in peak period times. With COVID, that was even more helpful because we were not open in our office for some weeks, and then eventually we were only open for 4 hours a week, and then eventually it gradually got to the place where we were open every single day. But there was a time where, you know, the question was asked, you know, how are we going to provide cards to students if you're not even open? And we luckily had this platform in place and our relationship and partnership with Bank Mobile to basically accept photos and distribute IDs without never needing to be here. And so that was obviously a giant win, and something, you know, that was very helpful for the students and the university not to try to solve, you know, after kind of COVID happened there. So, so anyways, I say all that to say, you know, we also, back before this, say we had an online student. I mean, how are you going to service that student without an online photo submission platform? Say they're never going to come to campus and they live 150 miles away, you know, and they'd call us and say, I don't need my card. You know, why do I need to come up there just to take a photo? Like, that seems really silly. And before, we'd say, you know, send your picture in an email and we'll go back and forth and try to work with them that way and deny it. And, you know, there'd be 10 emails back and forth, and all that's done now. Right? We're not doing that type of communication. We have a very seamless platform to make that happen. So, you know, our inbox isn't as cluttered, less things to deal with in that regard. From a true assessment standpoint, like, COVID did make things challenging, where what would have happened from a number standpoint if COVID didn't happen. Like, I really do not know if those numbers are higher or lower or about what we should expect in a given year, because this was the first year that we, used this service. And having that happen a month before we basically, rolled this out, a month before COVID started, from a true assessment standpoint, I don't know if I could accurately state exactly how successful this will be. We'll just need more years of time to evaluate that. But at this standpoint, I think in a given year, close to 5,000 photos without much marketing or orientation videos that we're even able to do at that time to get out to students, just a pure, hey, we're going to try to trigger some emails to people to get this going. I think that's a pretty successful launch from our end in a given year. So
yeah, I would 100% agree. It was really great to get you guys implemented before COVID. Like we talked about before we even started recording, like the timing just worked out perfectly. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with how things went along those lines. So my last question is a little off script, but I just wanted to hear from you. What have you been listening to lately? Are you listening to any podcasts, any music? What have you really been enjoying?
So I have two very young children. I have a 11-month-old and I have a 3-year-old. So my car rides consist of lots of Frozen, songs, Moana, anything Disney related. We're very much on an Aladdin kick lately. So we've been, so that is a lot of what I listen to in the car when I'm with the children and what I get to watch at home until I get, 1 hour to myself, maybe every single night. And then at that time, if I'm ever driving solo or by myself, I do listen to a lot of podcasts. I went to Florida State, so I do listen to like a Florida State kind of football podcast that they go about a couple times a week. And I'm also kind of a wrestling nerd. And people are like, you listen to watch that fake wrestling stuff? Yeah, I've watched WWE since I was 4 years old every single week, Monday Night Raw since I was 4. And so I do listen to a wrestling podcast pretty consistently. And I'm also kind of a reality TV guy for certain shows. I'm a big Brother fan, and I've gotten into The Circle lately on Netflix. And so I listen to some podcasts discussing those shows as well. But so all podcast and kids music, that's about it.
That's a great combo. We have a little one on the way in July. Yeah. So it'll be our first one. So I'm sure we'll have many Disney songs in our future.
Good luck. It'll be different, but it will also be amazing and fun. And I hope the best for you, Luke.
Yep, we're just gonna roll with it. So it'll be awesome. And Daniel, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. This was fantastic, and I really enjoyed talking with you.
All right, man. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. Okay, I stopped the recording. I think I did now. Oh no, I didn't.